What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? You are watching Knick-ish. This is the Knick-ish at Night segment of the show. My name is Mo, and my partner Nafi had to bounce a little early tonight, so it's just going to be me. But luckily for me, tonight's guest is someone who is packed with New York Knicks and NBA knowledge. He is one of the OGs of Knicks content creators and knows a thing or two about basketball. He is a founder of our affiliate, Nothing But Knicks. His name is Mr. Simeon Russell. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Mo. How you feeling, man? Glad to be here.
I am feeling well. Definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. I know you just came off of Guillermo's Legion of Knicks podcast. I was watching it. Great show. If you guys haven't had the chance to check it out, definitely make sure you check out Guillermo's podcast, Legion of Knicks. This week is going to be a little different for you. Unfortunately, you're kind of in a position where your account is, your YouTube account at least, is suspended. But, we'll try to do what we can to make sure that, your voice is still heard.
Yeah, I don't know. It happens from time to time. The YouTube police would be out. I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm not exactly sure. It's weird because they don't give you and say, hey, here's the content that is supposedly copyrighted, or that someone claimed is their content. So it's hard for me to even know what it was. You know what I mean? But, we'll try to make do for the next week.
Mm-hmm.
See what we can do. So it should be good. It should be all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the NBA season starting less than a week from now, it's crazy. That's starting just in a week, and we'll get a little bit into the Knicks. I know you've had some time to share your thoughts on it, but I am curious to know on your thoughts on just the rest of the NBA and which players in particular you're looking out for to really have a breakout season.
Wow, to have a breakout season. I'll tell you one thing that I'm impressed with are the rookies so far. A lot of people said that this was going to be a weak draft class, and the rookies, aren't going to be this, that, and the other thing. But a lot of the rookies have come into the league and played well. Isaac Okoro, we seen him last night with the Knicks in Cleveland. He's been playing well. Devin Vassell, San Antonio, he had a nice debut. Halliburton over in Sacramento, he's played well. And I think with this draft class, maybe what happened is so many people thought it was a weak draft class that instead of drafting for talent, they drafted for fit.
Right.
And so now guys are coming in and they have specific roles. They play in systems that fit their skill sets and they're playing well. So this could be a surprising draft class for a lot of people, I think. And our own guy, Obi, I think that, Obi's going to play well this season as well. He's got a little bit to learn about the NBA and stuff like that, but I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think the Vegas odds came out, and it looks like Obi Toppin has the highest percentage of winning Rookie of the Year. I know you mentioned even before he was drafted that Toppin has the most likely chance of being Rookie of the Year, but after seeing his play for 3 games, granted we didn't see him for many minutes, do you see that kind of potential in him for this season on the Knicks at least?
I think for Obi, Obi's going to need a point guard that can really help him to get the ball. He's not going to create his own shot. He doesn't have a ton of post moves. Mm-hmm. So I think you need to have a point guard that he can run a screen and roll with, get him open, let him get his dunks, and then it's going to open up the rest of his game. Right now, I think he's shooting, like maybe 16% or something like that from the 3-point line. He pulls it from deep. It looks good. His shot looks good a lot of times. His form and his shot looks good. I think eventually he'll start to knock those shots down. I think there's going to be some other rookies that have something to say about the Rookie of the Year thing, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see. He should be in the running, though.
For sure.
At least he should be in the running. But I think there's going to be some young guys that have something to say about that Rookie of the Year thing.
Now, Now, I think one of the conversations that haven't really been happening as much as I would have assumed is who's going to come out of the East this upcoming season. We saw Miami. That was a surprise team that really made it all the way to the finals. But we saw Drew signing with the Bucks. We see Kevin Durant, Kyrie, together playing together on the court with the brand new coaching staff. The East is very much up in the air. Who do you see coming out of the top two teams in the East?
Whew, it's going to be tough. I'm not discounting Miami. I've seen a lot of people say that Miami, they were a benefit of being in the bubble, stuff like that. Well, the NBA season is not going to be that much different than the bubble as far as fans being in the arena. And I think that's a great equalizer, not having the fans in the arena, because now, for the home team, those fans really do mean a lot. It energizes the team sometimes. Just playing in certain atmospheres sometimes can rattle another team or other players on the opposing team. It's not going to be that many fans in the stadium, I don't think, all season. Right. Even though there's a vaccine now and, that's another story, but I still don't think there's going to be fans in the arena for a long time. So I think that's a great equalizer. And teams like Miami benefited in the bubble, if that's what people think. And they may benefit during the regular season as well. I'm not counting out Miami because I think they have a lot of the ingredients to play gritty defense. They're stingy. They're not just going to give up because another team is supposed to have more talent or is supposed to be, a better team. They're going to fight. I wouldn't count those guys out from going to coming out of the East. I wouldn't count Boston out from coming out of the East either. I think they learned a lot from playing in the bubble. Jason Tatum is going to take another step forward. I'd like to see Kemba Walker show that, prove to everyone that he can be a primetime player in the playoffs. He didn't really do that last year, so I'm looking to see if he can do that this year. I wouldn't count Boston out. I'm not sure about the Bucks. To be honest with you, I don't know that Drew Holiday is he that much of an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe at that point guard spot? Because that's really what that was their big move to get Drew Holiday, and then they picked up Bobby Portis. He should be able to help them. he should be able to help them as far as
great pickup
for a little bit. But he's not going to come in and give you 20 a game or 10 rebounds a game. Well, maybe he could give you close to 10 rebounds a game, but he's not going to be a huge difference maker. So then the question is Drew Holiday that much better than Eric Bledsoe? Right, and they also moved along from George Hill. Right. And George Hill, I like George Hill. I think he's a good defender. He's a smart basketball player. He can knock down the three. I think, there's questions in the air about the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they're locked to come out of the Eastern Conference at all.
Yeah. I mean, with George Hill, you lose out on a locker room leader, and Bledsoe, has a scrappy defense. But Drew Holiday does have a better three-point shot. Also comes with scrappy defense and that leadership. I think he's known as one of the kindest guys in the NBA. And I noticed you didn't mention our little, stepbrother kind of forgotten team that just joined New York.
The Nets. Yeah. I forgot
we don't like
about
to mention them too much, but
I don't like to talk about them too much. Exactly. It's hard to say what the Nets are really going to be. It's weird. It seems like a weird situation over there in Brooklyn, right? Of course, you got KD and you got Kyrie. But then the coaching staff, Steve Nash is a brand new head coach. And I know Steve Nash is a brilliant guy, smart NBA player. He's got a great basketball IQ, but it's different when it comes to coaching in the NBA, right? It's just different. You got Mike D'Antoni to back him up and kind of show him the ropes. Then you got Amari Stoudemire. I don't know. We'll see, what Amari can do as far as coaching those guys. Now, what I will say is that if they plan to play the type of game that they played in Phoenix a long time ago, right, when it was Steve Nash and Amari, then, of course, Amari's able to impart some knowledge on KD and on Kyrie, on some things that they used to do. So I'm not exactly sure what it is that they're doing. That they have talent. Are those the guys? Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, and then you got the former coach who was still there. I can't think of his name now, but he's still there. Can they mesh that talent together? I think it's going to be, I'll tell you what, not having fans in the stadium will probably benefit Brooklyn because, they'll be able to just go in and play. They don't have to hear the murmur of the crowd. In New York, people are going to complain about this and that. They can tune out social media if they want to, so, that I think is going to benefit that team.
Right.
So I'm interested to see about them. I don't know if they're locked to come out of the Eastern Conference because for the most part, bringing in, with KD coming in, that's a big part that's coming in. It's not like he played last season for a little while and then was out. He didn't play last season. So there's going to be an adjustment there. It's going to be a new system with new coaches. It's definitely going to be, they've got to adjust. I don't see them coming out of the East this year. I don't think. So I guess to answer your question of who I see coming out of the East, I'm still thinking maybe it's going to be Miami or Boston.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, but at least for now, I might have to predict the Nets. Zach Lowe actually had a really good podcast a couple of days ago, and they really broke out his past couple of games. He had some reporters that he brought on, and based off what they were saying, from what they were seeing, Kevin Durant looks like Kevin Durant, and 90% of Kevin Durant is a top 3 NBA player. And he's driving into the basket. He's making cuts the way he did when he was pre Achilles injury, and obviously Achilles injury is no joke. It's one of the worst injuries you can have as an NBA player, especially at the age of what's Kevin Durant, 32. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think Steve Nash might be a coach who might end up being a little bit of a pushover, especially with all the potential drama that might come up in the locker room with obviously Kyrie and Durant, but guys like Dinwiddie or LeVert, who might have been hoping for more minutes or a bigger role, might have to be okay with being on the bench. And I know Nash, what he's trying to do is he's trying to kind of suck up to them. In the media, he talks very highly of guys like Dinwiddie, trying to compare him to guys like Manu Ginobili, and try to place him into that role of a 6 man, which could work out. And obviously they have Mike D'Antoni on that team too, which is going to be huge for their offense.
Right. The one thing about KD, and people say, yeah, he looks fresh and he's cutting and he's slashing and he's pre-KD, he before the Achilles, pre-Achilles KD, but he should look that way. He's been off a year, right?
Year and a half.
His Achilles has been reconstructed or whatever, they had to do. Let's see what happens after he's played 60 games. How does his Achilles feel after 60 games? Because how much pressure has he really put on that Achilles? Mm-hmm. Scrimmaging, practicing, it's not the same as when you're playing in heavy NBA competition. And I'm not wishing anything. I hope that it's good. I want KD to be healthy, right? But how much is it going to start to tire a little bit when he gets later in the season? That's where the worry comes in. I don't think the worry comes in right now. It's going to look good. It's going to look fresh. But when you get later in the season, is there wear and tear on that Achilles, mm-hmm. And stuff like that. We'll see what the Nets, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it comes about. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun and it's going to be funny. And I think there's somehow there's going to be some drama there. And I think, KD can look fresh and look good. And hopefully he looks like that all season. I just don't know if they have that continuity yet. Boston, Miami, they've been through some battles together. So they have that. There's a trust factor that comes in when you go through a bunch of battles, right? Where that certain guys got your back. They've had both of those teams have the same coaches for a while. They know what they want to do. They know how they want to play. You seen it last year with Denver and the Clippers. Well, not last year, but in the playoffs with Denver and the Clippers. When it came down to it, the Denver Nuggets trusted each other and knew exactly what they wanted to do. And so they were able to come back when that pressure was on and they had to, and they were facing elimination game after elimination game. They knew what to go to and how to get it done. And the Clippers, when the pressure was on them, they didn't know because they were new.
Right.
They didn't know how that was going to go. I think Miami and Boston, they kind of have an idea. I know Jimmy Butler just came there last season, but their team has been together for a little while. They've had a style of play, that they can rely on. You got Eric Spoelstra, who's been there for however many years, right? I think that those two teams, in my eyes, should be the two teams that people look at to come out of the Eastern Conference. I'm just not sure about Milwaukee. I feel like Milwaukee's starting to feel like Milwaukee's going to be like the Atlanta Hawks back in the day that would win 60 games, but they just couldn't get over the hump.
That's all. I mean, they got an MVP on their team, but I like that you mentioned the Nuggets because we'll pivot over a little bit to the West. Are the Nuggets making the Western Conference Finals again?
I think they can. People counted them out last year. They were a good team all last season. They play defense. They know what they want to do on offense. They've been together for a while. Michael Porter Jr., you can expect that or think or feel, that he's going to take a leap forward. I definitely think they can make the Western Conference Finals. There's a lot of competition, of course, right? The Clippers, the Lakers, Utah. There's a lot of competition, but I think the Nuggets can definitely make the Western Conference Finals. Yeah. Of course, I don't think anyone's beating the Lakers in the West. I just don't, but I think the Nuggets could be there, and then they're going to have to deal with the Lakers again.
It's going to be interesting to see. Sticking with the Clippers for just a second, because I think you and I agree it's probably going to be the Lakers. They were the favorite coming in, and they had probably the best offseason out of the NBA teams, which is just
right.
Sticking with Clippers for a sec, because Kawhi Leonard is going to be, if he doesn't pick up his option, is going to be a free agent next season. And with Giannis now signing on for 5 years, Paul George signing on with his team, free agency 2021 is looking a little bleak for the Knicks. Any other free agents alongside Kawhi Leonard who you think the Knicks might keep an eye out on? Because if they don't, then we're going to have another discussion.
I don't even know who else is supposed to come out in 2021. And I think their primary agenda has to be to get a bona fide starting point guard on the team, right? That's got to be their agenda more than any other position. Mm-hmm. Clearly, if a star is available, like a serious star is available, then you're going to make that exception. But
I'll throw a few names out for you.
Okay.
So alongside Kawhi Leonard, there's Drew Holiday, Rudy Gobert, Oladipo, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley, Dennis Schroeder. Not a lot of young guys.
Listening to that group, maybe Mike Conley could be a guy that they think about bringing in. I think he might stay in Utah. Utah might still want to bring him back at a reasonable price, but because I don't think that they are going to stay away from older guys. I don't think that's going to be. I think they want guys that know how to play basketball and they're going to come in and produce. Now, they may be trying to stay in that 27, 28, 29 range. They may not want to go as old as Mike Conley, right? So they might maybe, take a shot at Drew Holiday. I think he is in his 30s though, but he would most likely stay with the Bucks if they play well. Maybe they try to take a shot at Chris Paul. Chris Paul's going to be a free agent next year in 2021.
According to what I see here.
Or maybe
might be a player option.
A player option. I think there's a player option. So he's probably going to pick up his player option and stay in Phoenix. So he would most likely be off the table.
Basically, not many options.
Not many options.
So
not many options.
So that's the thing, right? So when we talk about the Knicks, when we talk about a brand new front office, brand new coach, they're not looking to wait 5 more years to be a winning team. And free agency was something that I'm sure that they had as options, especially while they're bringing Leon Rose and Worldwide West on the team for their connections. But if connections isn't going to help them at least next year. The year after, free agency isn't supposed to be that good either. What's the move? Because this current roster isn't probably going to win too many games unless they have breakouts from multiple players at the same time. Is a trade something that the Knicks should look into this next season, or fade for Cade, or what do you think they should do, at least so they can be a winning team in 2 or 3 seasons?
Yeah, I think as far as the tanking thing, I think that the Knicks have to try to Tom Thibodeau and the players got to try to produce as many wins as possible, be as competitive as possible. It may not happen, right? But I think they got to go out and play hard. The whole tanking thing hasn't really worked for the Knicks, right? I mean, they got RJ Barrett at the 3rd pick. They didn't play well last year. They ended up getting the 8th pick. Not that I'm, saying anything about Obi, but I like Obi and I think he's going to do well. But they end up getting the 8th pick. I think you have to, at some point, you have to decide, we are just going to try to build a structure and a format for these guys to play in, force them to play hard. If they don't want to play hard, they can get out of here. They're going to make mistakes. They're not going to be a perfect team. But if they can play hard, then they can compete with anybody that's in the NBA. And if we can get them to do that, then we can continue to add pieces as we go, and build this the way that the Clippers did, the way that the Nets did, right? They added pieces and they played hard and they had systems. And then Kawhi Leonard wanted to go to the Clippers. Mm-hmm. KD and Kyrie wanted to go to the Nets. I think that's got to be your formula. And you don't do that by just throwing your season away, I think. And I don't think the players that you have, if we talk about guys taking steps forward, I don't think the players that you have get better by just throwing your season away. So I think the Knicks got to try to stay competitive, fight, play hard, play defense, and then take whatever comes with you, and then the guys that you have on your team look even more valuable in a trade, right? If you're terrible, everyone, Knicks fans are like, yo, we got to fade for Cade, but then we got to trade all these players to get a star player or get a better player. But if you're fading for Cade, that means you're terrible. That means your players are not valuable. And people look and say, yo, this guy, you want to trade me this young guy who didn't produce on a 15-win team. That means he's not valuable. You know what I'm saying? If you want to make your team valuable, your players valuable so that you can make moves, then your team has to be competitive. When your team is competitive, then people look and say, okay, they got some valuable players over there, when it comes time to make some trades. I think, I don't know who or when or where, but a trade will come, and I think that's the way, if the Knicks are going to get a star, that's the way it's going to have to come, through trade or through developing their own players. I don't know who or where. I think they're taking shots at like guys like Austin Rivers, that he can be a lead guard for them. Maybe not a dynamic point guard, but a lead guard, because he has a lot of experience in the playoffs. He has a lot of, basketball knowledge and going deep in the playoffs. Never been to the Western Conference Finals, I don't think, but he might have with Houston. Maybe he went to the Western Conference Finals.
I don't know if he was on that team. I mean, it was like 3 seasons ago. I
don't know.
Clippers then.
He might have still been on the Clippers, so I'm not sure. But he's got some experience going deep in the playoffs, like, second round, 7th game in the second round and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Right. So, he brings that to the Knicks, and he's never played on a team where he could straight up be the guy. Right. He was behind Chris Paul. He was behind Russell Westbrook and James Harden. So this may be a chance, and he may be looking at it as a chance for him to really establish himself as a primary starter in the NBA. So I think that they took a shot on him in that aspect. He's 28 years old. Nerlens Noel, he was ballyhooed coming out of college, never turned out to be what people thought. You heard John Calipari say, this is the year for him to break out, or, he wants to break out. You got Kenny Payne there with the New York Knicks. And I don't think he's going to have a breakout year, but maybe he can give you a double-double. He might be able to give you 10 points, 10 rebounds. And maybe if Austin Rivers can come in and give you, 15 points and 3 or 4 assists, because he's never been a heavy assist guy, right? 3 or 4 assists, but help you to run your team. That could be beneficial,
right.
And help the Knicks to look better than maybe people expect. I'm not expecting a lot of wins, but I'm not expecting this team to be as bad as some people might project them to be honest with you. I see that right now, and I know it's only 3 preseason games, and they played 2 terrible teams. Mm-hmm. But their defensive rating is like 3rd in the league at whatever it is, 92.9 or something like that. We'll see if it's going to last. Things that I'm seeing from the guys, they play hard. They're playing, they're trying to play defense. They got to work on, some of the team defense aspects. I think the second unit with the young guys, they got to work on playing good, strong defense together. The shots are spread out, right? RJ Barrett's leading the team in shot attempts at about 17, and then it's Julius Randle at 11, and then you got other guys that are getting 9 shots, 8 shots, 10 shots, right? That's good. That means you don't have one guy taking 25 shots. Like, it's spread out very well as far as who's taking shots. We'll see if that lasts going into the season. So there are some positive things, and I think that Tom Thibodeau is the kind of coach that's gonna, really push the guys to play hard and kind of force them to play hard. So I don't think the Knicks are gonna have as bad a season as most people think. Are they gonna make the playoffs? Probably not. But I think they can hover around and maybe make a push towards that 10th seed and then try to get into a play-in game or something like that.
I think most people are kind of pegging them towards a 26-27 win team. I think you mentioned it in your Sportscastr from earlier that Nerlens Noel might be the best mentor that Mitch can have, at least from his previous ones when compared to Taj and DeAndre. Mm-hmm. And when you said it, I thought of Nerlens Noel's previous situation a couple of years back when he was offered a huge contract that he turned down and ended up not working for him, and a couple of years later getting single-digit, dollars. And I think that factor could be important because I think there's speculation that Mitch took offense that Noel might start over him, and that kind of just caused some internal problems. But I think Noel could be a great mentor in that sense because he can show Mitch that he's made mistakes and he can learn from it. And I think it's important when Mitch himself has had 6 agents, and obviously he's showing a huge lack of trust, and it might be because his peoples aren't telling him the right things or not. But I think Noel being there can show him, humbly that situations happen at least outside of the court that you want to look out for. And I think Noel could be really good at that. And obviously, play style is very similar. But yeah, I think that was a really good point that you made.
Yeah. And I think that Noel is going to be really good for Mitch, right? Because he understands a little bit more of the technical side of the game. DeAndre Jordan, he was there with Mitch, and they kind of had the same kind of personalities, right? So it was cool for Mitch, and Mitch did some things that some things that you liked with DeAndre Jordan being there. But I don't think DeAndre Jordan has that technical side of the game either, not that Noel has. And I think that's going to help Mitch when he understands that part of the reason that he's not starting, because I don't think he's going to start, is because he doesn't have those technical parts of the game. I think that that's what's going to help him to learn, right? And he's going to see that, wow, Thibodeau put in Noel, not, because of the technical side. Yeah, I'm more talented than him. I can jump higher. I can block more shots, and I can, bring down these crazy dunks. But he has those technical things, those small little things that help a team win, maybe just a little bit more, that edge a team, that gives the team an edge. And I think he's going to learn that this year. He might struggle a little bit while he's learning it because that's the growth process. But I think he's going to learn that this year.
We've seen a couple of players struggle early on these couple of preseason games, players that should not be struggling in their, second or third year in the NBA, namely Knox, Dennis Smith Jr., and I feel like I'm forgetting one more person who's struggling. We'll stick with those two guys. Between Knox and Dennis Smith Jr., who do you suspect, if either of them would come out as an improved player? Obviously, we saw last night Knox played a lot better, but Dennis Smith Jr.'s defense is a lot better. I know you've been more pro Dennis Smith Jr., compared to other people on Knicks Twitter, for example. But between just those two guys, who do you see having a more likely chance to, actually improve on the court on a more consistent basis?
I think it would be Knox that would come out between the two and be more consistent. Because Dennis Smith Jr., I think, is struggling learning how to be a point guard that Tom Thibodeau is asking him to be. And I think that's going to be a struggle for him for a good portion of the season. It's not something that you just get after playing 10, 15 games. It takes a while. A point guard is a tough position, and it takes a little while, especially if you're used to being the kind of guard that's a scoring guard that goes and scores. That's what Dennis Smith Jr. is, or that's what he came into the league as. So I think he's going to have a tougher time than Knox. Knox's only job is to score, score and get some rebounds. That's all he really has to do. He doesn't have the same responsibilities as Dennis Smith Jr. At least, that's what Tom Thibodeau is putting on Dennis Smith Jr. right now. So I think it would be Knox, especially if you can get a guy, if he starts to develop some continuity with Quickly, and Quickly's playing, then you can see Knox maybe, really start to give you something. I'm hoping. I like Knox, and the Knicks are going to need Kevin Knox, I think, because a lot of teams are going to play zone. And if Knox can hit that 3-point shot, they're going to need it bad because bad.
Yeah, and that's the thing he's never had. He's never had a good point guard to help set him up. And if you look at his best games, he had that one Rookie of the Month like 2 years ago when the last time he actually played well on an NBA court, and that was when guys were able to drop dimes for that one. Moutier was dropping 5, 6, 7 assists a game. Even Hardaway Jr. was starting to drop assists for that hot 1 month, and that was it. I agree with, because that when Quickly was finally able to find Knox, and Knox had wide open shots when he's not thinking he's KD and taking 2 dribbles and pulling up and getting air balls. His shot goes in. He has a very good and solid form, and he just needs an actual legitimate point guard to make those plays for him. Yeah. So Kevin Knox, he's an enigma, man. The thing is, and I know people hate to hear it about him, and they hate to hear it about a lot of players because we got a lot of projects on this team. Yeah. Mitchell Robinson, Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox, now Dennis Smith Jr. is a project as well. A lot of them on this team, right? And you're hoping that 1 or 2 of them are going to step up, right,
and do something. But everyone right now is going to give Obi a pass because he's a rookie. And I'm not hating on or coming down on Obi, but they're going to give Obi a pass because he's a rookie. Obi's going to be 23 years old in March. Kevin Knox is 21 years old right now. He doesn't turn 22 until August. Right. So people will sit and say, well, Knox has been in the league for a lot of years. Yeah, I get that. But, the player still has to develop. They need time to develop. So people are going to look at Obi and say, well, give him some time to develop because he's a rookie. Well, he's about 1.5 years older than Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox is going to need some time to develop still. Mm-hmm. He just played his younger years in the NBA when Obi played his younger years on a different level. You know what I'm saying? I think you still got to give some time to Kevin Knox. People get impatient. Like if Kevin Knox, this is the thing. If Kevin Knox was drafted this year and came into the NBA this year and played the exact same way he's playing now, he'd get a pass.
Yeah.
And
I would be like, oh, we got a good one.
Right. Exactly. He would have had that game last night and everyone would have been like, yo, this guy might break out. He might be this, he might be that. You know what I'm saying? Right. Right. So I think, we just got to still remain cool, remain patient, and you can still bring in the Knicks. What they've done is set themselves up so that you can, if it's through free agency or even through trade, and you might give up a young guy through trade, you can bring in a player and still have enough young players to develop. Right. People forget there's 15 spots on a roster. So you don't have to move a guy just because he's not producing right now. You can, like right now, the Knicks are in position to give a guy room to develop. Right. When you're a championship team, you might want a guy that's going to produce right now because you need something in your roster. So you give up a young guy. But when you're not, you have room to let these guys grow and play a little bit, and the way guys are coming into the league now, you need a little bit more time, right. I think, rather than it used to be like, if a guy isn't producing by the third year, then maybe you have to move on from him or something like that. But I think the way guys come into the league now, you need just a little bit more time. They come in very, very young, and everyone's not going to come in and be LeBron James. Some guys are going to come in and need a couple more years to develop, right. and become what they're going to be. Not just basketball wise, but they got to grow as men and mature a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
half the game, at least for these guys, was between the ears. And if you play on a Knicks court, have to deal with all the media and all the Knicks fans, it's it takes its toll. We've seen it. That's why we have 5-6 projects on the team right now. That's why RJ's different, because stuff like that doesn't face him. And
exactly.
The Knicks fans and Knicks Twitter and Knicks content creators, we all pay attention a lot to what they show, at least off the court as well. And I'd be remiss to not bring this topic up, because over the last 24 hours, and this might be poking the bear a little bit, but a lot of people had a few things to say about your takes on Julius Randle. And
I know.
I'm not gonna say I'm not here to say he's the worst player the Knicks have, or he's one of the worst players. I've seen some horrible Knicks players. I've seen some really shitty players, and Randle's not one of them. But that being said, is your qualm against the way people see Randle right now in his game, and would you want to see him in a Knicks uniform next season? This is his last season. He could, if the Knicks want him back, they could have him back. Offer the right, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not for or against Randle, to be honest with you. I'm not a big Randle fan. Because I defend him. Everyone's like, oh, he loves Julius Randle. That's his guy. Actually, he's not. If the Knicks move on from him today, I'm not going to be sad. So I'm not for or against Julius Randle. I just think that, and he makes a lot of mistakes, like everybody on the team does. He makes a lot of mistakes. His mistakes are exacerbated because, he is one of the top 2 players on the team. Right. And he's been in the league longer than RJ, because if you look at the stats right now, RJ's shooting 50% from the field. He's averaging, I think, 18.7 points per game. He averages 2 assists, and he's averaging 2.7 turnovers. So he's turning the ball over more than he's getting assists. Julius Randle's averaging about the same point wise, I believe, shooting 50% from the field. He's averaging 4.7 assists per game. This is preseason numbers, and he's averaging 3 turnovers. Right. Everyone with Julius Randle is going to look at the turnovers and say, yeah, we don't need those 3 turnovers. And, and his turnovers look bad, right? Because he has bad balance and he falls when he turns the ball over, and it looks bad. Yeah. But so everyone comes down on him because he's the highest paid, and people say he's paid to be the number 1. I guess. But on a good team, he's paid as a 3rd or 4th option. He's making $19 million a year. That's not 30 or 40 like you see, your star players make. And on a good team, he's probably your 3rd or 4th option. Right. But for the New York Knicks, he's your 1st or 2nd option, because that's who we have. I think so. So he gets, to me, he gets scapegoated for everything that's wrong with the Knicks. And he's not everything that's wrong with the Knicks. For this team, for this particular team right here, right now, if you take him off the floor, where do you go? You're gonna get RJ. If he's not playing, where are you going to get points? You're not going any place to get points. If you watched the game last night without Julius Randle, there is zero inside presence, like none. There's no beef inside to able to bruise guys up and make a difference in the game that way. There's none whatsoever. He's got to learn how to pass the ball, make the right passes out of the double team. He's been a little bit better this preseason. He was better last night. But you know what? When he does get the ball out of his hands, you don't see those guys, Reggie Bullock, RJ Barrett, Alec Burks. You don't see those guys as wide open from three, in comparison to anyone else passing it to him. Julius Randle demands a lot of attention when he's in the post. A lot. 3-4 guys come around him, which means those 3-point shots are wide open. If you watch the game, and I'm sure you'll see tomorrow night 2 or 3 3-point attempts where Julius Randle was in the poster with 3 guys around him, and he dips down real low with the basketball, and then passes the ball out after he makes a double pump pass, something like that. I hate that double pump that he does, but he does it all the time, right? But he does. He'll pass it out, and you'll see the guy, whoever it is, RJ Barrett, Reggie Bullock, whoever, wide open with nobody around them because he demands so much attention. And I think people really miss that with Julius Randle. And people say, well, his 19-10 or 19-9. It's not producing wins or. The way he plays, yeah, he gets the stats, but it's not conducive to good basketball. I just disagree. He makes mistakes, but, he brings something to the team that you're not getting anyplace else. And I think if there comes a time during the season where Julius Randle was out for 5 or 6 games, I think people are going to see it. See, last year, if he was out, I don't know if he was out much last year, maybe 1 or 2 games, but I think you still had Marcus Morris there, and you had a different kind of presence. This season, if Julius Randle is out for 5 or 6 games for whatever reason, people are really going to notice that there's no anchor on that offensive side, and we're not going to be able to score the ball. I mean, right now we don't score the ball very well. Right. So that's just my argument with Julius Randle. I don't think he's the scapegoat. Is he the best player in the world? Obviously not. But I don't like it when everyone looks at one person and makes him the scapegoat. Because I don't think he's the scapegoat. But when he is gone, it's going to be RJ. He's going to be next up. Right. I can guarantee it. And then everyone's going to look at RJ and say, well, he's not getting enough assists. He needs to get more assists. He needs to knock down the 3-point shot. He's hogging the ball. Mark my words on this show right here, Mo. Mark my words. It's going to happen with RJ. Unless we get a star that's better than RJ. If Julius is gone and RJ is the bona fide best player on the team, watch what happens to RJ. Then he's going to be the scapegoat.
I mentioned it on our last podcast on Knick-ish. If RJ's not getting you the ball, getting you a basket, who else is there to get you that basket that you need in crunch time aside from Julius Randle? He is that player who can get you a basket when you need it. It's just the thing is that I think Knicks fans are ready to make that transition for RJ to be the man, that RJ is elite based off these 3 preseason games. A lot of people feel that he is that guy right now. And when you see, Elfrid Payton and Julius Randle doing their, 2-man game, and you see RJ on the corner, at certain times, especially last season, there are multiple, situations where RJ was open. It's kind of like seeing, 2 players that no one wants to see, let's say like Jordan Hill and Nick Young open, doing their 2-man game, and Kobe's open, RIP. Kind of like that. Obviously, RJ and Kobe are not on the same level at all. But it's kind of like that. Everyone wants to see RJ succeed, and the reason why there might be a lot more Randle hate than some would like is because they feel like Julius is taking shots away from him. And I think that might be a situation until Randle's role is established. And I think with him being the highest paid player on the team. And especially last season, especially with Fizz coaching him, he thought he was the guy. He thought he was the man on the team.
Yeah.
He played as such, but I don't think his role is as clear this season, and I think that's something that Tibbs needs to do ASAP. So, it looked like RJ was upset at certain points when he wasn't getting the ball. There was a moment when he was speaking to Frank when he got on the bench. He just looked unhappy. I think that was after Randle's little turnover that got blown out of proportion, and he drove in on 3 guys. I was gonna say one,
but I think RJ is becoming that naturally, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at it right now, Julius Randle's getting to the line more than anybody on the team. But he's shooting the ball only 11 times per game. RJ's shooting the ball like 18 times per game. Mm-hmm. Right? They're both shooting well. They're both shooting 50% from the field. When you look last year, Julius Randle shot the ball 15 times and RJ was like 13 times. Right now, RJ's usage rate is more than Randle's usage rate. I was just looking at it earlier. RJ's usage rate is like 24 point something, and then Randle's is like 23 point something. So RJ is being used as the guy. Now when you look at the Elfrid Payton and Julius Randle 2-man game, it's going to happen. I don't care what point guard that you have out there on the floor. The person they're going to pass the ball to the most is going to be Julius Randle, because Julius Randle plays in the post and he needs a guard to pass him the basketball. He's also a screener. So when he sets the screen, he's going to pop, he's going to roll, and that guard is going to find Julius Randle. RJ Barrett doesn't play as a screener. RJ Barrett plays as a ball handler, and he doesn't need someone to pass him the ball. You know what I mean? Now, if Tom Thibodeau uses him off of screens, uses him off of slashes to the basket, then you expect that they're going to find RJ Barrett cutting to the basket and things like that. But a lot of times, RJ Barrett's going to get the ball in isolation, and that's part of the reason why his assists aren't going to be high. Right, because he's going to get the ball in isolation and look to go get a bucket. So that's part of the reason why you see that 2-man game between those 2 guys. And, I just say, everybody trusts Tibbs. Right now, Tibbs is letting it happen. So, talk to Tibbs about it, man. Talk to Tibbs. I know people been coming at me, and my joke over the last 24 hours is like my man Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon. I can catch bullets with my teeth, man, because a lot of them been coming at me. A lot of bullets been coming at me. But we were just on Legion and Knicks podcast, and a lot of people agreed about Julius Randle. Yeah. But Tom Thibodeau is the one putting him on the floor, and he's playing them for 30 minutes, and he's playing the 2 guys together. So he obviously thinks that those are his best options as well. Last night, the Knicks had 28 assists on 38 made field goals. So, that's not bad. Yep. That's not bad. So, we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. I think Austin Rivers is going to have something to say, though, about that guard spot.
For sure. All right, Sim, I know you're trying to practice ball after this. You say you're going to go to the gym afterward.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate you coming on to the show, man. Knick-ish at Nite. And, we'd love to have you back at some point soon, man.
And anytime, man. Anytime. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And for all the viewers watching at home, make sure you follow NBK on YouTube, Twitch, I believe, Twitter, Sportscastr, Instagram, and, look out for all the content that's coming out in the next week from everybody in the NBK fam. Make sure you follow up on Knick-ish, Instagram and Twitter at Knick-ish Show. Subscribe to our podcast on SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, make sure you check us out next Thursday for Knick-ish at Night, where we bring in a new guest. It's going to be right after the first game that the Knicks start. Until next time, take care, everyone. Have a good night. Peace.
Peace.